Newsflash, not all sport pundits are the same. Some chase clout, some chase clarity, some chase authenticity, and some manage to roll it all into one. So the real question is, what type of sport pundit are you? If you're new here, welcome to the intersection of sports, media, and business. At Quadrant Digital, we help sport content creators maximize their revenue, engagement, and work less while seeing more growth. So if that's your bag, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this. In the last video, we talked about the sport punditry spectrum, where not only sport punditry content creators, but traditional sport media journalists/analysts and ex-pros turned pundits sit. However, the sport punditry quadrant is different. It's not about who you are, it's about how effective you are. It's a simple framework that defines the 4 core attributes of an elite sport pundit. Now, the first pillar of the sport punditry quadrant is being informative, as it's not only what you say, but it's how well you understand the game. Tactical breakdowns, game IQ, context that goes deeper than surface level takes, and much more. As if you lack this, fans who desire education and those who are informative will simply tune out. The second pillar of the sport punditry quadrant is entertainment. This is how you package your insight, your delivery style, your personality, your on-screen presence, and much more. Because as it pertains to sport punditry content creators, the branding and presentation of your content could be damn near perfect. But if you're boring people, or worse, not being authentic to who you are and how you present your takes, then one of 2 things simply happen. Either you bore people to death and no one actually stays to watch or hear anything you have to say, or you manage to grow a following, audience, or generate some buzz, but deep down, you aren't being true to yourself. So the main takeaway from this pillar is, be true to who you are, keep it simple, and if it's not broke, don't fix it. Now, the third pillar in the sport punditry quadrant is trust equity. This is your reputation bank as a sport pundit, and it determines your level of authority. Or in layman's terms, it's how much people trust your takes before you even make them. As the reality of the situation is, trust equity is not binary, but it does exist on the spectrum. If we mapped out trust equity across the sport punditry spectrum, the differences become clear. Because not all voices start at the same baseline of credibility. And not all credibility is valued the same. Sport punditry content creators start with the lowest trust equity. Not because they lack insight, but because the barrier of entry is damn near non-existent. At the end of the day, they're just another person on the internet giving their opinion on the game, which means trust must be earned over time through consistency. As authority for sport punditry content creators is built after people listen, not before. Traditional sport media analysts/journalists sit in the middle of the spectrum. Their credibility is boosted by exposure. TV, radio, legacy platforms, and networks. But it's a double-edged sword. Consumers and viewers often tune into the network and not the individual, as being on ESPN or Sky Sports doesn't automatically mean you're trusted. Trust equity only compounds when the analysts themselves becomes the draw. Current and ex-professionals sit at the top of the trust equity spectrum. This goes for coaches, players, managers, and all those who are adjacent. Because playing professionally, especially at the highest level, is a statistical anomaly. Their experience acts as a prerequisite badge of honor before they ever speak. But don't get it twisted for a chocolate biscuit. Trust equity at a pro level is still competitive, as not all pros carry the same authority and level of trust equity. As when audiences see current or especially ex-pros turn sport pundits, they start subconsciously asking themselves questions like, how good were they? What level did they reach? And why on earth should I listen to them? The stronger the career is, the higher the default level of trust is. The weaker the career is, the more the pundit has to prove their authority. This is simply a case of supply and demand, as anyone can have an opinion. However, when accounting for the statistical anomaly it is to make it as a professional at the highest level, only a few can truly say they've lived, ate, and breathed the game at the highest level. as that lived experience can't be replicated, duplicated, or earned. This is why active or ex-pros can launch a YouTube channel and immediately command attention, even outperforming sport punditry content creators who've been grinding for over a decade, as they don't need to borrow credibility. They are the credibility. Even in the context of a traditional sport media analyst/journalist and ex-pro turned pundit, i.e. Shannon Sharpe and Skip Bayless, Skip had more media experience and Shannon had more playing experience. And while Shannon could do what Skip did in terms of building his experience within media, Skip could never do what Shannon did in terms of his experience of playing on the field at the highest level, let alone winning Super Bowls and much more. And while experience can be built, playing the game can't be replicated or faked. Shannon had access to insight, stories, relationships, and most importantly, authority. That's why trust equity isn't about who talks the best. It's about who people trust before the take is delivered. And on the trust equity spectrum, experience will always be the rarest asset. The fourth pillar in the sport punditry quadrant is consistency. Now, consistency doesn't look the same for everyone. It changes depending on where you sit on the sport punditry spectrum. For content creators, consistency is a non-negotiable. As said before, the barrier of entry is low, so if any and everyone can post their opinions on the game, separation only occurs through consistency and building trust equity. For traditional sport media analysts/journalists, consistency as a sport pundit looks different. It's not just about volume, it's about presence and performance. Appearing regularly on the screen, delivering takes, and most importantly, becoming more of a draw than the show itself. But that only happens through repeated exposure and analysis and takes that actually move the needle. For better or for worse, as quantity gets you see, but quality builds your authority and trust equity. Active and ex-pros are the outliers. They're the only avatar that can get away with less consistency and still manage to see more growth, especially active pros. As when it comes to ex-professionals, only those at the very top can get away with less consistency and still see more growth, especially when they're not playing anymore. As the greater their playing career is or was, the less output is required, i.e. a LeBron or Ronaldo. They can appear sporadically and still command attention, as their careers, accomplishments, and credentials is the credibility. For most retired professionals, once the game stops, so does the automatic exposure, which then means if growth and establishing their authority within the field is what they actually want to pursue, then some form of consistency is going to be needed. In comparison to active professionals, whose automatic exposure through matches, training, press conferences, and much more nurtures any following, authority, and their trust equity while their career is still live and well. So, to wrap up the fourth pillar of the sport punditry quadrant, sport punditry content creators needed to build trust. Traditional sport media analysts/journalists needed to maintain relevance, and active and ex-pros needed the least, but take that with a pinch of salt. As regardless of whatever sport punditry avatar you may be, consistency will always be the engine of growth. Now, it does not take rocket scientists to figure out being informative without providing entertainment is oftentimes a first-class ticket to boredom. Comparatively, entertainment with no substance is simply empty calories, here 1 minute and gone the next. And consistency without trust is like playing a game of hide and seek in a room full of people, but you're simply Casper the Ghost. So, to round this up, the sport punditry quadrant isn't about who's better than who. It's about awareness of your strengths, weaknesses, and your goals depending on where you fit along the sport punditry spectrum. So, with taking all of this into account, my only question for you is, what do you need to add to take yourself to the next level?